You need to help your brother. Family comes first, Grace. I stared at my phone, reading the text message from my father for the third time. The audacity was breathtaking. My hands trembled as I sat at my kitchen table in Denver, Colorado, trying to process what he was asking. $4,500 for my brother's graduation networking trip. Not a request, a demand. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. I didn't reply, not yet. I let the phone screen go dark and looked at the calendar on the wall. The date was circled in red marker. Saturday. 2 days ago. The memory hit me with the force of a subpoena. I was back in the party room at the trampoline park. The air smelled of stale pizza and unwashed foam. I had booked table 4 for 20 guests. I had paid the deposit using 3 weeks of overtime pay because I wanted Benjamin to have the noise, the chaos, the celebration. I wanted him to feel surrounded. Instead, table 4 was a landscape of empty chairs. The paper plates remained stacked. The pitcher of fruit punch sat untouched, sweating condensation onto the plastic tablecloth. My son, Benjamin, didn't ask where his grandfather was. He didn't ask why Uncle Hunter wasn't there to see his front flip. He just sat at the head of the table, wearing his paper crown, eating a slice of pepperoni pizza in silence. He wasn't crying. He was 6 years old, and he had already learned the most painful lesson of our lineage. Expect nothing, and you won't be disappointed. I took a photo of him, just one. The solitary candle flickering on his cake. While he went back to bounce alone, I had opened Instagram, and there they were. My mother, Susan, holding a mimosa. My father, Douglas, wearing his Community Leader of the Year pin. Rebecca, posing with a pout, and Hunter, the man of the hour, raising a glass of champagne at the Summit Sky Resort. The caption read, "Pre-graduation brunch for our shining star, so proud of the man you've become." They weren't sick, they weren't busy. They were 40 minutes away, spending $500 on brunch while I sat in a neon-lit warehouse with a lonely little boy. For years, I had treated their neglect as an accounting error I could fix with enough deposits. I paid their country club dues. I sent $3,200 every month for mortgage assistance because Douglas claimed his liquidity was tied up in his charity work. I balanced their books while my own emotional ledger bled red. It's a specific kind of conditioning. When you are raised in a house where love is a limited resource, hoarded for the golden child, you start to believe that affection is a subscription service. I thought I was paying premiums on a policy that would one day pay out. I thought if I was useful enough, solvent enough, quiet enough, they would eventually tolerate my presence. I looked at the text message again. $4,500. This wasn't a request for help, it was an invoice for my continued existence in their periphery. I realized then that cruelty, when administered in small, daily doses since childhood, doesn't feel like abuse, it feels like gravity. You don't fight it, you just brace yourself against the weight. But looking at that text, the gravity shifted. I wasn't building equity in this family. I was just paying rent for a room they had boarded up years ago. Emotion is just bad data in an audit. I deleted it. I unlocked my phone. My hands had stopped shaking. A strange, cold calm had settled over me, the kind of focus that usually only kicked in during high-stakes discovery meetings when I found the smoking gun in a stack of chaotic financial records. I opened my banking app. I navigated to the transfer tab. I selected Douglas from my saved recipients. I didn't block him. Not yet. A block is an emotional reaction. A transaction is a statement. I typed in the amount, not $4,500. $5. In the memo line, I typed 7 words. For a coffee at the airport. Best wishes. I hit send. The screen flashed, transfer complete. I didn't stop there. I went to my recurring payments tab. It was a long list. A monthly hemorrhage of my income that I had justified as duty. Douglas and Susan. Country club dues. Cancel. Douglas, mortgage assistance. Cancel. Hunter. Car insurance. Cancel. In less than 60 seconds, I had liquidated my position as the family benefactor. I watched the scheduled outflow drop to zero. It wasn't just saving money. It was stopping the bleeding. I had been keeping them warm by setting myself on fire, and I just blew out the match. I set the phone down on the granite countertop and waited. I expected the ringtone. I expected the rage. Instead, a single text came through. It wasn't from Douglas. It was from my cousin, Allison. Allison was the Switzerland of our family, neutral, observant, usually silent. The message was just an image attachment with a caption. "I think you need to see this. I'm sorry." I opened the image. It was a screenshot of a group chat. The chat was titled, "The Inner Circle." I scanned the participants. My mother, Susan, my father, Douglas, my sister, Rebecca, my brother, Hunter, and various aunts and uncles. I wasn't in it. Of course I wasn't. I zoomed in on the timestamp. It was from Saturday morning, while I was sitting in that empty party room with Benjamin. Hunter wrote, "Just booked the flight. First class was a stretch, but Dad says we need to project success to attract investors." Rebecca replied, "So proud of you. Much better use of funds than whatever tacky thing Grace is doing." Did she really rent a trampoline park? Talk about low budget. Susan added, "You know how Grace is. She counts every penny. It's embarrassing, really. She has no sense of occasion." I felt a hollow ache in my chest, a dull throb, where my loyalty used to be. They weren't just ignoring me, they were actively mocking the life I paid for. But then I read the next message, sent by my father, Douglas. Douglas wrote, "Don't worry about the budget, son. Once I sell the townhouse in the fall, we'll have plenty of capital to seed your startup. The market in Denver is hot. That little asset is going to pay for your future." I froze. The townhouse, my home, the home where my son slept. The home I had refinanced 3 years ago to get Douglas's name off the deed, because his credit score was a liability. He didn't just think he was entitled to my income, he believed he still owned my sanctuary. He was planning to liquidate the roof over my son's head to fund Hunter's delusions of grandeur. This wasn't just a toxic family dynamic anymore. This was a hostile takeover. I looked around my kitchen. I saw the backsplash I had tiled myself. The height chart penciled onto the doorframe. This wasn't his asset, it was my fortress. And he was coming for it. An hour later, my doorbell camera chimed. I didn't need to check the feed to know who it was. Douglas didn't text back, he escalated. That was his signature move. If intimidation didn't work over the phone, he brought it to your doorstep. I watched the monitor. His Lincoln Navigator was parked diagonally across my driveway, blocking me in. He strode up the walkway, not looking at the door, but at the windows, scanning the property like a landlord assessing damage. He was wearing his weekend casual polo shirt tucked into khakis, a look that screamed country club membership paid for by someone else. He didn't knock. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a key, and jammed it into the lock. I stood on the other side of the door, silent. He turned it. It didn't budge. He jiggled it, then shoved his shoulder against the wood, the entitlement radiating off him in waves. When the door refused to yield, he stepped back, looking at the key as if it had personally betrayed him. Then he pounded his fist against the frame. "Grace, open this door. I know you're in there." I pressed the talk button on the intercom. "The locks were changed 3 years ago, Douglas." He spun toward the camera, his face flushing a deep, mottled red. "Changed? What do you mean changed? This is my property. I'm here to inspect it for listing. It's not your property. I refinanced. Your name was removed from the deed and the mortgage. You have no legal claim to this house. You couldn't afford this place without me," he screamed, his voice cracking, spitting the words at the lens. "A single mother on a paralegal's salary? You think you're some big shot? I built this life for you. You are nothing without my credit score." The misogyny wasn't surprising, but hearing it out loud, stripped of the usual caring father veneer, clarified everything. He didn't see me as a daughter. He saw me as a failed investment he needed to liquidate. "Get off my porch," I said, my voice flat. "Or, I'm calling the police for trespassing." He stared at the camera for a long moment, breathing hard. Then he pointed a finger at the lens. "You'll regret this. You think you can cut me off?" I'll sue you for every penny you owe me. I have lawyers, Grace. Real ones. Not paralegals. He stormed back to his car, peeling out of the driveway with a screech of tires that startled the neighbor's dog. I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I walked to my home office and booted up my work laptop. He wanted a legal battle? Fine. I had spent 10 years preparing trial exhibits for high-stakes corporate litigation. I knew how to build a case. I started with a simple search: public records. I pulled the filings for the Veterans Support Fund, the charity Douglas had run for the last decade. It was the source of his local fame. The reason he was always shaking hands with the mayor. I downloaded the 990 forms. I cross-referenced the board members, mostly his golf buddies. Then I called Sarah. Sarah was a forensic accountant I had worked with on a massive embezzlement case last year. She owed me a favor for finding the hidden offshore accounts that won us the settlement. Grace? She answered on the second ring. It's Sunday. This better be good. I need you to look at something, I said. I think my father is running a shell game. And I need to prove it, before he tries to sue me for assets I don't owe him. Send me the files, she said. I'll put a pot of coffee on. We spent the next 6 hours on a video call, screen-sharing spreadsheets. We matched dates. May 12th. A fundraising gala expense of $12,000. May 12th. Hunter's Instagram post from a VIP table in Vegas. August 4th. Administrative overhead withdrawal of $8,000. August 5th. My mother Susan, posting a photo of a new diamond tennis bracelet. It wasn't subtle, it was sloppy. It was the kind of fraud committed by a man who believed he was untouchable because he had a plaque on the wall and a daughter paying his real bills. Grace, Sarah said, her voice quiet. Look at this transfer. 3 days ago. I looked. A withdrawal of $95,000. Transferred to an account labeled Capital Holding. He didn't just spend the money, Sarah said. He emptied the accounts. He's liquidating the charity. My blood ran cold. He wasn't just broke. He was preparing to run. And he had come to my house to sell it, because $95,000 wasn't enough. The weight of the discovery pressed down on me like a physical burden. $95,000. Embezzled from men and women who had served, bled, and sacrificed for this country. Stolen by my father, to fund a facade of success. I thought about the monthly mortgage assistance checks I had sent him for 4 years. The total was over $150,000. He hadn't been paying the bank. He had been pocketing my money while paying the mortgage with stolen charity funds, juggling accounts to keep the scheme afloat. And now that I had cut off the supply, the house of cards was collapsing. Sarah was still on the line, her silence mirroring my own shock. Grace, she said finally. This is federal. This is wire fraud. Tax evasion. Embezzlement. If he's moving money to Capital Holding, he's trying to hide assets before the inevitable audit. Or before he leaves the country, I added, remembering Hunter's networking trip to Europe. Was it a graduation gift? Or an exit strategy? I need to report this, I said. My voice didn't shake. The daughter who yearned for approval was gone, replaced by the paralegal who knew exactly how the law dealt with thieves. You do, Sarah agreed. But Grace, be careful. Men like Douglas, when they're cornered, they don't just surrender. They attack. I printed the ledgers. I highlighted the fraudulent transfers in neon yellow. I compiled a timeline matching his charity expenses to my family's luxury purchases. I built a case file, meticulous and damning. Just as I was stapling the final exhibit, my phone rang. It was Douglas. I stared at the screen. He hadn't called since the townhouse incident. I answered, putting him on speaker. Grace, he said. His voice was different. The bluster was gone, replaced by a tight, frantic energy. We need to meet. Now. I have nothing to say to you. It's about the house, he rushed on. I found a buyer, a cash offer. We can close in a week. I'll split it with you. 50-50. That's generous, Grace. Think about Benjamin. The audacity was staggering. He was still trying to sell a house he didn't own. To split equity that was legally mine. To solve a problem he had created with a crime. The house isn't for sale. Douglas. Don't be stupid, he snapped, the mask slipping. I need that money. The fund. There are some accounting errors. I need to balance the books before the quarterly review. If I don't. He trailed off, the implication hanging heavy in the air. You mean the $95,000 you stole? I asked. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating silence. Where are you? He whispered. I'm at work. It was a lie. I was standing in my kitchen, looking at the evidence that would send him to prison. Meet me, he said. The parking lot behind your office. 20 minutes. Bring the deed. We can fix this, Grace. We're family. Family, I repeated. The word tasted like ash. 20 minutes. I hung up. I wasn't bringing the deed. I was bringing the file. I grabbed my keys and the manila envelope. I texted Sarah. If I don't call you in an hour, send the digital files to the FBI. Then I drove to the ambush. I pulled into the back lot of my office building. It was empty, save for a single black Lincoln Navigator idling near the dumpster. Douglas and Hunter were waiting outside the car. They stood shoulder to shoulder, a united front of entitlement and desperation. Hunter looked nervous, shifting his weight from foot to foot, but Douglas looked dangerous. His face was tight. His eyes manic. I parked my sedan 3 spaces away. I didn't turn the engine off immediately. I checked my phone. The voice memo app was recording. The location was shared with Sarah. I stepped out. You brought it? Douglas demanded. He didn't say hello. He didn't ask how I was. He just extended a hand, palm up, expecting the deed to my home. I brought something better, I said. Hunter stepped forward, trying to loom. Just give him the papers, Grace. Dad says you're ruining everything. If he misses this quarterly review because of you. Because of me? I laughed, a sharp, cold sound that echoed off the brick wall. I didn't empty the accounts, Hunter. I didn't spend $95,000 on a life I couldn't afford. Shut up! Douglas lunged, getting into my personal space. You think you're smart? You think you can hold out on me? I know the partners at your firm. One call, Grace. One call, and I'll tell them their senior paralegal is stealing family assets. I will burn your career to the ground. It was a classic intimidation tactic. A week ago, it might have worked. But fear requires respect for the person threatening you, and I had none left. I reached into my bag. I didn't pull out a deed. I pulled out the manila envelope. Read it, I said, shoving it against his chest. He grabbed it, tearing the flap open. He pulled out the stack of papers. The first page was the ledger from the Veterans Support Fund. The withdrawal of $95,000 was highlighted in neon yellow. Next to it, I had stapled a copy of the wire transfer to Capital Holding, an offshore shell company Sarah had traced directly to him. I watched his eyes scan the lines. I watched the blood drain from his face, leaving him the color of old parchment. In that moment, watching him crumble, I understood the physics of his existence. We often mistake financial leverage for strength of character. We think men like Douglas are powerful because they are loud, because they take up space, because they demand things and get them. But their power isn't intrinsic. It is a costume rented on credit. Their identity is entirely external. It's the car, the title, the fear they instill in their children. It's the difference between having value and being valuable. When you strip away the money, there is no man left underneath. There is just a vacuum where a soul should be. The arrogance didn't just fade, it evaporated. The lease on his personality had expired. His hands started to shake, the papers rattled like dry leaves. You found this? He whispered. Sarah found it. The forensic accountant. Who else knows? Just us. For now. He looked up. The rage was gone. In its place was a naked, terrifying fear. Tears welled in his eyes, not tears of remorse for the veterans he stole from, or the daughter he abused, but tears for himself. Grace, he choked out. He reached for my arm, his grip weak. Grace, please. You have to help me. I can't go to prison. I'm a community leader. It was a mistake. I was going to put it back. You were going to sell my house to put it back, I said. We can fix it, he begged, sobbing now, snot running down his nose. You're smart. You know the law. We can cook the books. Just for a month. Just until I get a loan. Please, Gracie. I'm your daddy. Hunter looked from his father to the papers, realizing for the first time that the networking trip wasn't a gift, it was hush money paid with stolen valor. He backed away, retreating toward the car. I can't help you, Douglas, I said. That would make me an accessory, and unlike you, I worked for my career. I'll die in there, he wailed, dropping to his knees on the asphalt. Then you better get a good lawyer, I said, because I'm not paying for one. I turned my back on him. I walked to my car, got in, and locked the doors. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror. He was still on his knees, clutching the evidence of his own destruction. A small, broken man in an empty parking lot. The fallout was swift and absolute. Sarah sent the files to the FBI the next morning. Douglas was indicted within a week on 30 counts of wire fraud, embezzlement, and tax evasion. The local news ran the story with a photo of him shaking hands with the mayor, captioned "Fallen Hero." Hunter was detained at the airport trying to board a flight to Ibiza. His networking trip ended in a federal holding cell. My mother, Susan, called me once. She didn't ask how I was. She screamed that I had ruined the family name, that I was vindictive, that I had destroyed her life. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just hung up and blocked the number. The family splintered. Rebecca stopped speaking to me, siding with our mother in a narrative where I was the villain who tore them apart. I let them have their story. It was the only asset they had left. 6 months later, I sat in my boss's office. The partners have been reviewing your performance, he said. Your handling of the discovery in the Peterson case was impeccable. But frankly, Grace, your personal integrity, that's what we value most. He slid a contract across the desk. We're promoting you to case manager, and we're doubling your salary. I signed the contract with a steady hand. That raise meant Benjamin's college fund was secure. It meant we were safe. But I didn't stop there. I used my bonus to hire a private investigator not for me, but for the veterans Douglas had stolen from. We tracked down assets he had hidden in shell companies. I worked pro bono with the district attorney's office to ensure restitution was part of his plea deal. Douglas was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. On the day of his sentencing, I didn't go to court. Instead, I took Benjamin to the mountains. We hiked to a clearing, overlooking the valley. The air was thin and clean. Benjamin ran ahead, chasing butterflies, his laughter echoing off the rocks. I watched him, thinking about the cycle I had broken. For years, I thought revenge was about making them pay. I thought it was about destruction. But standing there, watching my son run free, unburdened by the debt of my father's sins, I realized the truth. True revenge isn't about burning their house down. It's about building a fortress they can never enter. It's about constructing a life so solid, so full of peace and integrity, that the chaos of your past can no longer touch you. I didn't just walk away. I became the architect of my own peace, and that is the only victory that matters.